Hello, everyone. I hope everyone can see me and hear me. And I want to welcome you to our workshop today on the topic how to build DeFi applications on Stellar using only JavaScript. And this workshop is brought to you by 𝐒𝐔𝐁. 𝐒𝐔𝐁 is the first Web3 talent platform and I'm going to present to you in a second what exactly we do. I just want to wait a little bit until a couple of more people join so we can officially kick off the workshop. And I would like to get somehow a signal from everyone that you're online, that everything's working. Maybe also someone from my team can ping me if everything's working. Online, that everything. Okay. Yeah, I think everything's working. All right, perfect. So let's kick it off then. Again, welcome everyone to the workshop, How to Build DeFi Applications on Stellar using only JavaScript. I got a first comment that you hear loud and clear. Perfect. And this workshop, as I said, is brought to you by 𝐒𝐔𝐁, and we are the first Web3 based talent platform educating professionals to get ready for a career in the blockchain industry. We also frequently organize trainings like this. We organize hackathons in order to onboard as many people as possible in blockchain and to help them start building their projects and building on different technologies in the blockchain space. All right, and oops, let me flip through my slides now. This workshop today is brought to you by us, 𝐒𝐔𝐁, as I mentioned, and today we will have our developer relationship manager, Donatus, who is going to give the practical part of the workshop, so actually how to build the application. And I will talk, I'll show you the agenda really quickly. I will speak about the introduction to blockchain technology and also to DeFi. And our community relationship manager, Prospa, she's going to be answering any questions in the chat and also forwarding some of the questions to myself or Donatus that are relevant for what we are talking about. And she will be also moderating the chat. All right. I just want to make sure that the stream is also working on LinkedIn, because we're streaming to two platforms currently. I see myself on LinkedIn, so I guess it's also working there, and on YouTube, which is perfect. All right, so let's go. And before we actually jump into the presentation, I want to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about my experience and why am I so passionate about blockchain and DeFi in general. So I have 8 years of experience in the banking industry, and I've worked with leading international financial services companies such as Deutsche Bank and the German Stock Exchange. And during my time in this banking industry, I've also came across the word blockchain. And around 2018, I started also consulting financial services industries about the topic of blockchain and had several blockchain projects in the financial services industry. Later on in 2022, I started 𝐒𝐿𝐁, And today we have over 10,000 professionals in our community that we're upskilling and helping regularly to find their path in the blockchain space. I also have a master's degree in finance, and I'm an alumna from the DLT Talents program at the Frankfurt School of Finance. And now we're going to jump into the actual topic of today, which is blockchain and DeFi. So why we do this at 𝐒𝐄𝐿ens, right? Why do we care about blockchain professionals? It is because we have realized that in the blockchain space, there is really the need of more training, more education, and more practical workshops so people can actually start building. Because we believe that the only way to start in this industry is to actually start working. So learning by doing. And this is why we're organizing such practical workshops like today's workshop and also hackathons. We've organized over 30 hackathons, and we're working with some of the largest blockchain protocols in the industry. As you can see on the slide, we're working with Solana, we've worked with Celo and Gnosis Chain, and now we're also working with Stellar. And this workshop focuses also a lot on the Stellar technology because it is very relevant for the DeFi space, and also developers can build DeFi applications only using JavaScript, which is a very good way to kick off your first experience in the space. All right. Now, before we start, I would actually like to know how much you guys that are watching this workshop know about blockchain and DeFi. So I would like you to scan this QR code and just answer these two questions. What is your level of understanding of blockchain and of DeFi? Because depending on that, I will be going faster or slower in the next few slides. We've prepared, of course, an introduction to blockchain and DeFi, but if everyone knows here exactly what we're talking about, probably it's not that necessary to go that much into detail. So our colleague Prosper will also send a link to the survey here, so you can click on it and participate, or you can just scan the QR code, and then we can see how many of you have experience already or have a knowledge about blockchain and DeFi before I start showing you the next slides and explaining more in depth about this topic. And I'm gonna open already my analysis here and see what people are answering. Okay, we're getting already some answers in. Let's see. So the good thing is I don't see yet anyone saying that you don't know anything about it, which is really good. So most of you know actually a lot about DeFi, which is great. So I guess we're gonna have a faster pace in the slides in the beginning. And we can very quickly go into the practical part of the workshop. I'm just gonna wait another few seconds to see if more people are gonna partake in the survey. And see what is the level of understanding. All right. All right, we got some responses already. So quite a lot of you guys actually already know a lot, as I see. You cannot see the results here, but I'm getting like a very dynamic graph. So most of the answers are that you know a lot, right? This is probably the average answer, which is quite good. So I'm just gonna very, very quickly go through the next slides, which are the basics of blockchain and basics of DeFi, because I guess you already know something about it. And I don't need to go a lot into detail. All right. So thanks for participating. Thanks for giving me your answers. And now let's start with what is blockchain. So super quickly, blockchain is a public database. That is probably the simplest explanation of blockchain that I can give. It's a public database where when a transaction happens, when something happens on a blockchain, it is visible to all the participants in this blockchain. It's visible on a public ledger. And why is it distributed? Why is it called distributed ledger? Is because there are several or multiple nodes or computers that are participating in this database by validating these transactions. This is where the word DLT, distributed ledger technology, comes from. So whatever action we take, whatever information we post on a blockchain, it is visible to all the nodes and all the participants in this blockchain, and everyone can read this information. And they cannot change it. If anyone wants to make a change, this change is recorded as a change. So we can always see the initial version of a transaction or of an information, and you can see that something was added to the information. I can give a quick example. So if I have let's say a database of our newsletter, it is usually hosted on a server somewhere where only I or only the admins of this database can see. But if I host it on a blockchain, everyone could see who has subscribed for this newsletter. And if I want to change any information, I can only change it on a server, right? But if I change it on a blockchain, you would see that this has been changed, that someone has added new information to this ledger, right? So this is basically what a blockchain is. And there are different types of blockchains, but I'm going to come to this later on. So this distributed ledger is basically a technology, right? Like this database could be different kinds of technologies, and this is where the different blockchains come from, right? So you have heard of them probably, the Bitcoin blockchain, we have the Ethereum blockchain, we have the Solana blockchain, and today we're speaking about Stellar, which is another blockchain. So all of them are technologies that have different properties when it comes to their distributed ledger. And now going forward, I would like to speak about smart contracts, because this is another very important topic that we have to discuss before we move into building DeFi applications. So what is a smart contract? A smart contract is, as it says here, an instruction or a function that is stored on the blockchain, and it executes automatically when certain conditions are met. And I would like to give an example here with the DeFi world. So let's say if I have a mortgage, or if I want to take a mortgage or a loan for a house I want to buy. In the traditional world, what happens is that the bank would ask for a lot of information from me, and they have an employee at the bank checking this information. So they would check how much my salary is, do I have like a stable job where every month I get a salary, and how much this salary is. They would want to know maybe how much I'm spending. So they're sure that I have a stable income that is enough so I can buy this house. But if we do this on a blockchain, we could lock this mortgage contract or mortgage function into a smart contract that accesses my on-chain payments or my on-chain financial transactions. And if I would receive, let's say, my salary on chain, this smart contract can see, okay, Maria is getting every month, I don't know, 1,000 euros. And with a predefined condition that, let's say, I have to get at least 1,000 euros to get the mortgage, the smart contract can directly check, okay, is Maria getting every month 1,000 euros on her bank or on her crypto wallet? Yes, she is. Okay, in this case, I'm executing the mortgage contract and she's getting the money for her loan. So that would be a way a smart contract would work without any third-party participation. So the third party being the bank, right? Or the employee at the bank checking my documents. So that would be a smart contract. And then going further, except DeFi, there are multiple use cases for blockchain, right? So today we're speaking about DeFi, which is all the financial services applications that are executed on a blockchain, on a distributed ledger. But there's so many other use cases for blockchain technology. For example, in logistics and supply chain is very interesting because if you have, let's say, different sensors or different devices that track the supply chain of a product, the information of a product going from one point to another can be also recorded on a public ledger. And this way, all the parties participating in the supply chain of this product can see where this product has been going, where it has been, let's say, produced, packaged, delivered, and so on and so forth, without any error. And everyone has one source of truth, basically, which is another really great application of blockchain technology. And as you can see, there's so many others. Now, jumping into the next part is, of course, the introduction to DeFi, or I already mentioned what is DeFi. It is all kinds of financial services happening on a blockchain, right? And today we're going to, what we're going to do together with Donatus, he's going to lead the practical part, is we're going to be building a DeFi application using JavaScript on the Stellar blockchain. And this DeFi application will be to write a basic function to create a liquidity pool, deposit and withdraw assets from that liquidity pool on the Stellar testnet. So I want to explain this challenge because here are some terms that are typical for DeFi that I just want to explain in case someone doesn't understand them. So I'll start from the end, right? So what is a testnet? So like in the normal Web2 world, when you develop an application, you usually have your developer environment where you're developing. Then you have your test environment where you push your application for testing. And then if the testing is fine, if everything works well, you push it on mainnet. The same thing happens in the blockchain world. So in the blockchain, where you're building a blockchain application, you build it and you test it, right, on the testnet. And after that, if everything's working, you push it to mainnet. So today we'll be building on testnet. Something important to know is that when we're building a blockchain application, we always need a token because a token powers the functions of the smart contracts or makes the smart contracts work. Because as I mentioned, in the decentralized ledger technology, you have so many nodes that are working for you. They're validating these transactions that have to be rewarded. And we reward them with the native token of the blockchain. So if we want our applications to work on chain, we have to power them with the native token of the blockchain. So in this case, I'm just going to go to the next slide quickly to show you what that means. We'll be building on Stellar. You see the last column here. That's the blockchain we'll be building on. And what we're going to be using is a test token, right? Because we're building on testnet of the XLM, which is the Stellar Lumen token. This is what we're going to be using. And all of the other popular blockchains that I've written down here, they use other technologies and they're powered by other tokens, and you need them to build on these chains, right? And this is just this is a table that can show you exactly what other blockchains they are. It's just for you to for your information that there are also many other blockchains actually, and they have different properties. For example, what's the transaction speed? How many transactions per second can happen on a blockchain? What kind of language are we using to build on this blockchain? So for Stellar, we will be using JavaScript, but there are also other programming languages that you can use. For Solana, for example, you would need Rust. For Ethereum, you will need Solidity, and so on and so forth. So today we're going to be using JavaScript for Stellar, and we'll be building the DeFi app on Stellar. And another word that I want to explain is the word liquidity pool, because this is a very typical DeFi word. If you guys have any questions so far, please write them in the chat. Don't hesitate. And we're going to take them before the workshop starts, actually, the practical part. So what is a liquidity pool? This is something very typical for a DeFi. So the graph, the picture here shows you what happens in traditional finance. In traditional finance, if I want to buy a stock, I need someone to sell it to me. I have a counterparty. That's called a counterparty. So if I want to buy a stock, I have a counterparty, this guy here, that is selling me the stock. But in DeFi, I don't always have a counterparty. Sometimes if I want to buy a digital asset or a token, for example, I can buy it from a liquidity pool, not from a person, not from a counterparty, but from a liquidity pool. And this is what we're going to be doing here in this workshop, right? So what is a liquidity pool? It's explained here in a very short sentence. It's a collection of funds locked in a smart contracts. So if I'm buying from something that is not a person, this is a pool where many people have put their tokens into. So they're locked there and other people can trade against these tokens. And for these people, they're called liquidity providers, to put their tokens into the liquidity pool, they get a reward, which here, this graph is actually showing what approximately the reward is. So for example, if I want to provide liquidity to a liquidity pool, I always have to provide a pair of tokens. So in this case, USDC, which is a stable coin pegged to the US dollar, plus the Stellar Lumen token. I'm supplying these two tokens. Let's say I have $1,000. I'm supplying $500 of XLM and $500 of USDC. I'm supplying to the liquidity pool, and I'm getting around 2% reward per year for me providing this liquidity to the pool. So the application, the smart contract, can operate. So people can buy this token from the liquidity pool, or these tokens from the liquidity pool, because I have supplied liquidity. So basically, this is what is a liquidity pool and how it works, right? In a very simple explanation. All right, so if you guys have any questions, please write them in the comment section, and then we'll be answering. Now, let's go to the main part, which is to introduce Donatos, who is going to be actually leading the workshop, showing you step by step the code, how to build your first DeFi application using only JavaScript. All right, I'm gonna turn on Donatos now. Hello, Donatos. You're on.
Hi, Maria. Hi, everyone. Um, Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can see you. Everything fine.
All right. So, guys, good evening. My name is Anatus Prince, and it's amazing to be here. So I am a blockchain developer, and currently I'm leading developer relations here at 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐄. I have 4 years experience as an integration engineer. I also have experience leading cross-functional teams like Vector Protocol. Back in 2023, I was the grand winner for Polygon's Next Startup Prize for a project that were built, and I am a 6 times hackathon winner, building on several EVM blockchains like the OPBNB, the Oasis Sapphire, the Polygon, the Gnosis, and a host of others, right? So in this workshop, I'm going to be taking you through what we are going to be building, and that would be to create a liquidity pool, right? So I'm going to be walking you through what we are going to do first of all, how we're going to do it, and the of expectation of what we can see, right? So I'm quickly going to show you my screen to just give you a brief um rundown of what is going to happen, and also what we expect to see, something like we expect to see during this workshop. Let me just give you a quick intro about what we are going to be seeing. So let me give you, so if you can see my screen, kindly let me know.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Maria, can you please put my screen? Can you share my screen?
We can see your screen, Donatus. We can see it.
Guys, can you see my screen? Guys, can you see my screen? Can you communicate in the comments? Let me know if you can see my screen.
I think Donatus
So
is not
basically
hearing
what
us.
we're doing here, this is like
Donatus,
what an expectation of what we're to have. So this is a basic liquidity pool. Okay, so this is basically our liquidity pool. This is where we generate the key pair. This is where we fund our accounts. So this is all these things where I'm showing you here. We're going to do it actually with code, right? This is where we do all those stuffs. So we've funded our account. We're going to go ahead and basically create an asset, and we want to deposit the 500 Lumen token and 500 Ecolance asset that we just created. We're depositing it into the liquidity pool, right? So you can see the transaction URL, and this is the liquidity pool ID. And also we can decide to withdraw any amount. Let's say we want to withdraw 50 Ecolance token from this liquidity pool, and you can see our withdrawal is successful. And if you click on this URL, it's going to take you over the transaction where it happened on the Stellar testnet, right? So I basically want to show you this overview before I now walk you through the code step by step, right? So I'm going to stop sharing. Mara, you can now show our slide. So guys, what I just showed you is the front end of basically what we are going to be doing, right? So I'm going to walk you through the step-by-step process of everything we just did. Then we can easily move on from there. Let me know if you're following. So along the line, if you have any question, just drop it on the comments. So the first step in what we're going to do is we're going to create our liquidity pool. We are going to create the liquidity pool, and we are going to fund that liquidity pool with our desired assets that we want to put in the liquidity pool. When Maria was explaining about liquidity pool, she said something, and I want you to take note of that. Basically, the liquidity pool is where is a collection of assets that is available to be traded, right? So that is where people that are called liquidity provider, they provide assets that people can trade, right? So here we are trying to create our own liquidity pool. We're going to fund it with the asset we want people to be able to transact with. The second step in what we're going to do, we're going to now make a transaction, which is we're going to trade that asset that we supply to the liquidity pool. And when we are done with that, we are going to also simulate a withdrawal from the liquidity pool. That's just buying or trading from the liquidity pool. We're going to withdraw some assets from the liquidity pool, right? So with that being said, I'm going to switch over to my VS Code. So I'm going to switch over to my code editor, and we are now going to start writing. We're going to start writing the code, right? So please notify
And
me if you
guys,
can
I want
see.
to we see you. I'm gonna share your screen in a second. Guys, I just wanted to quickly let you know that in the end of this presentation, we will share with you a super exciting challenge that is going to be based on this code, where you can win some monetary prizes. So stay tuned until the end, where we're gonna show the challenge where you can participate. All right, I'm sharing your screen, Donatus.
All right, so guys, you need to the end of this presentation because there is challenge to become. First thing we're going to do is to open your code editor. Once your code editor is open, you can just go ahead and create a new file. Depending on the code editor you're using, I'm using VS Code. So you can name the file anything you want to name it. You can name it so you can be able to navigate around. So I've already created an index.js. We've initiated our project is to import all the dependencies that we want to use to build our DeFi app, right? So the first thing we're going to do is to import the Stellar SDK, right? So to import the Stellar SDK, all you have to do is open up your terminal and npm install, right? Npm install SDK. I already have it on my system. So when you run it, it's going to install this dependency, right? This is the first step. Another thing I want you to install is the fetch. This is basically to make an RPC call, right? To make the RPC call. So you also install npm install node fetch. So this is basically the first step. If you are conversant with JavaScript, this is the first step you do. You try to import all the libraries that you are going to be using, right? So I already have this dependency, so I'm not going to bore you with that. So also what everything we're doing here, the step-by-step process, we prepared also a guidebook that Maria will talk about as well, that you can comment and let us know you want the guidebook. We can literally send you the guidebook, and it contains the step-by-step process of everything we've explained, everything Maria has explained, everything we're going to be doing here. So you can basically use it as a helpful resources. So now we've installed our Stellar SDK. We are going to go ahead and start importing the libraries that we are going to use. So what are the libraries that we are going to use? First of all, we're going to be importing some things. We're going to be importing some things from the Stellar SDK that we just installed, the Stellar SDK. First of all, we're going to be needing a key pair. So key pair is basically what we are going to be using to sign the transaction. Remember also when Maria was explaining about how things work on the blockchain. So every instruction on the blockchain is a program, and for you to be able to interact with the chain, you have to sign it. You have to sign the transaction before you send it. So key pair is what we use to simulate the signing of transactions on the blockchain, right? So the next thing we are going to be importing is the Soroban RPC. So this is basically the server, the network server, the Stellar network server that we're going to be using for our application, right? So the next thing we also want to import is the transaction builder. So the transaction builder is a class in Stellar that you use to build up your transaction, because every instruction on Stellar as an operation, transaction builder is what you use to build an instruction, customize it so that you can be able to send it over to the internet. The next thing we're going to be importing is assets. This is what we're going to be using to create the asset we want to supply to the liquidity pool. If you are paying attention, when Maria was explaining, she also mentioned about how you deposit to the liquidity pool the assets you want. So you can decide to deposit 500 USD, or you can decide to the 500 value of Lumen token. So Lumen token is an asset. USDC is also an asset. Every every token and NFTs on the Stellar network is an asset, and this asset class is what we use to create them, right? The next thing we're going to be importing is the operation. Like I told you, everything on the Stellar is action. The next thing we're going to importing again is the liquidity pool asset. We're also going to get the function to bring in optimize our base fee. Is how we basically reward the and finally we are going to import networks. So this is the networks we're going to import, right? To do after that, we're also going to import the fetch. We're going to import fetch from node RPC, right? So this is basically all the dependencies that we are going to use. For those of you that are familiar with JavaScript, this is the base. This is the thing you do whenever you're what you intend to use. So Maria also already explained the difference between testnet and mainnet. And for the purpose of this workshop, we are going to be building on the testnet environment, right? So the testnet is basically where you build out your program and you test it, because for every transaction you're sending on the blockchain requires a token, and we're going to be requesting for a free test token to test out our application. You have to use tokens, and this time around you're using real token that have real world value, right? So that is why we're using the testnet, so we can be able to test. So when everything is working on the testnet, we can now migrate over to the mainnet. So I already have a function that I created for you to get the testnet tokens that you're going to be building, right? So Stellar has a library that they call the friend bot. So basically you call the friend bot and it rewards your address with some at 10,000 Lumen tokens for you to test, right? This is a test token. They are fake. They have no real world value. The only value they have is for you to test out your programs. So that is that about it. So the next to be doing is, right now we are going to be generating the key pair for the liquidity pool, right? So the key pair for the liquidity pool, remember I told you that everything you're doing on the blockchain, you need to sign it as a transaction. So you signing it means you're saying, okay, I agree to this instruction I'm sending over chain. That is basically, so for us to do that, we're going to be creating a key pair signer for us to sign that transaction. And to do that, there are two ways to do this. One way is you can create an account and import your private key into your code. But for the purpose of this class, we're going to be using the key pair from Stellar to generate a random key pair, so we can just test out our application and ensure everything is working, right? So we're going to create a constant and we are going to name it DeFi key pair. Okay, and we are going to call the key pair class that we imported from here, right? We're going to call the key pair class and we are going to say run of testing. Now that we've done that, next thing we want to do, because this key pair we generated is going to generate a signer, a new account, a new address. But this address will not be able to carry out any transaction because there is no token for you to process the transactions with. So we're going to be requesting for a free token from the friend bots powered by Stellar to be able to get some fake tokens for us to test our transaction, right? So we're going to call this function here, this fund account with friend bot, and we're going to pass in our key, so the address. So again, we're going to call this await because this is an async function. So we're going to call await fund our account, saying fund at the DeFi key pair we created, fund the public key of this DeFi. It is done. to set up our server, so we want to send our transaction to the Stellar blockchain. And for us to do that, we're going to create a new constant and call it server, right? And we're going to call the Soroban RPC class that we imported from Stellar SDK. We're going to call and create a new class. We're going to call and create a new class, and we're going to call server method, right? We're going to call the server method, and we are to pass in the testnet. Now, if you're building the mainnet RPC, but because we are building on the testnet, we are passing in the testnet RPC. Okay, we've set up the RPC to make the call to Stellar testnet. What we want to do now is we're now slowly getting into the meat of the day, which is we are now trying to create the assets that we want to supply to the liquidity pool, right? So we want to create our own assets, right? So as Maria mentioned when she was giving you analogy, USDC and Lumen token. So we want to supply Lumen token and our own personalized assets to the liquidity pool. But we don't have an asset. So the first thing we have to do is to create an asset. So let us go ahead and create an asset. We're going to initialize another constant, and we're going to call this 𝐒𝐂 assets. In your case, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it your name, whatever you want to name your assets, you're permitted to do that. Be flexible, right? So because this is an 𝐒𝐂 workshop, and we're going to call it the 𝐒𝐂 asset because it's an 𝐒𝐂 workshop, right? So when you're building your own DeFi application, you can call it your own name. Okay, so we're calling the asset class here, and we're going to give our asset name. So you can see the asset takes a code, which is the name you want to call the asset, and the issuer, who is issuing this asset. In our case, is going to be the DeFi keeper that we generated, right? Okay, so let us give
Can
our
I
asset.
quickly say something? Can I quickly say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can.
So for everyone here, don't worry if you're not like as fast as Donatus. I'm sure you're not, because he has already prepared all the commands. Don't worry about that. We have prepared like a full guide on everything with all the commands. So it's like a blueprint on how to create this application. And we'll be sharing very, very soon a link to a form where you can register if you want to get this guide, because with this guide, you can immediately build this app very, very quickly. It has like a step-by-step, it's a step-by-step guide for everything. So Prosper will be sharing the form very soon with you, and you can register if you want to get the guide, because it will also help you a lot for the challenge that we're going to announce. All right, so Donatus, back to you.
Yeah, I think everybody should actually get that guide because it explains all these things in detail, right? So I want you just to pay attention to what we are doing, understand the concept, understand what is happening, and also when the link for the guide is being shared, also indicate interest so it can become a muscle memory. So when you're building your own part of the challenge, it becomes easier for you. Okay. So back to building. So now we are going to call the DeFi keeper as the issuer, all right? So the next to do, following these to dos, next to do will be to define the liquidity pool as the assets. Let us now define the asset we want on our liquidity pool, right? So how do we do this? We also again create a new constant and call it LP assets. Now I want you to also understand all the variables that I'm creating, they are dynamic. So when you're building your own application, you can decide to call it whatever you want. But remember in JavaScript naming convention, always name your variables with names you can easily remember, right? So don't go and be naming X, Y, Z. So name your variables accordingly. So whenever you open your code or when you're having a bug and you're trying to debug, you can easily look at this asset and know exactly what it does. For example, when I look at the LP asset, immediately I know it's the liquidity pool asset that I'm referring to. Okay. So I wanted to just point that out because also that's a nice coding convention. So we're going to call the liquidity pool assets that we imported. So everything we imported here, we've started using them step by step. That is why I said the first thing you do when you're building an application with JavaScript, with React, is to import the dependencies you want to use, right? So before you even start coding, you have to understand the logic. That is why before we came to this VS Code editor, I showed you the step by step in the slide of what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, right? So you have a pictorial imagination of what we want to achieve, right? So let us define the assets we want to put in our liquidity pool. Remember when Maria was also, I keep going back to everything Maria said on the slide because they work hand in hand. The slide is basically to guide you and to explain to you how these things work behind. That is also another priority, another reason why you should get that guide immediately the link drop indicates interest. So what do we want in our liquidity pool? If you're paying attention, one Maria was saying, she said something like you can have um the USDC SLM in your liquidity pool. So this is the liquidity pool asset that you have. So, but in our own case, we want to SLM token and just created, right? So that's what we are going to. Liquidity pool asset takes two parameters. The first parameter is the token you want to deposit. And in our own case, we are going to use assets.native, which is the Stellar XLM Lumen token. And the second asset we want on our liquidity pool is the 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐄 assets that we just created up here, right? This 𝐒𝐿𝐷 assets. Then after this, we're going to set the fee because the fee is how the providers get paid, right? The fee is how the liquidity providers is basically what is going to happen. So we're going to set the fee to 30%, which is 0.3%, which is 30 BTS. If you also get the guide, in the guide, it's explain what the 30 BTS actually means. So we are setting the fees for this, our liquidity pool, to be 0.3%, which is 30 BTS. Okay? So the next thing we want ID. So the liquidity identifier, just like when you see things like liquidity pool address. So it's an identifier that is unique to every liquidity pool on every blockchain, not particularly to Stellar, every blockchain. They have a unique identifier for every liquidity pool, right? So in Stellar, they call it the liquidity pool ID. And for us to get this liquidity pool ID, we're just going to create a new constant and we're going to name it liquidity pool ID. Okay, and we are going to call again the liquidity pool, the get liquidity pool function that we set in, and this will pass in a constant product, and we are going to pass in the liquidity pool asset, which is the liquidity pool parameters. So this constant product is like a default variable that the liquidity pool ID takes, and the liquidity pool asset is the parameter that we created. Like, okay, so now we've gotten our liquidity pool, we've gotten our liquidity pool asset, we've created an asset. The next thing we want to we'll console log everything. Okay, so we want to see the assets we create. We want to see the liquidity pool ID that we now. The next thing we want to do, so if you notice from here, let me quickly go over everything we've done. So here is the part where we imported the dependencies that we used. Here is where we set function to request for a free test token. Here is where we call the key pair to generate a random sign newly generated, to set up the RPC server. This is where we create also behind for find and where we are liquidity pool ID, and this is we are console logging everything we've done so far. Okay, so now we've set up all the parameters, all the little details that is going to contribute to our DeFi app. Now let us now create our liquidity pool. That is the first thing we're going to do. We're going to create our liquidity pool. And for us to create our liquidity pool, we are basically going to create a new function, a new constant, sorry, and we're going to call it LP deposits transaction. So this LP deposit transaction is the name we're going to call the liquidity pool we are trying to create. And we're going to now call, remember when I told you that our transaction builder here is how we build transactions that we send over to the network. So we're going to initialize a new class from the transaction builder. Okay. And we are going to begin to pass in the parameter to be using. So sending over this instruction is the DeFi account. What is the DeFi account? The DeFi account simply means the DeFi account is, let's go back to where this is the key pair. So if you want to get our account from this key pair, we are basically going to create a new constant and call it DeFi account. We are going to bring this down here. Let me bring it down on the server. So we're basically going to call this server function that we created, call the get account, and we're going to put in the key pair we just created from here. Okay, so we're getting the DeFi account. So this is the account that is going to be sending over the instructions over to the Stellar blockchain. So we're going to call that DeFi account here. Okay, so now we've called the DeFi account. This is now time we begin to build the transaction. What exactly do we want in this transaction builder? The first thing, this is like a convention for all the program, all the payment operations you're going to be building on Stellar. The first thing we're going to be saying is we're going to define the fee. Okay, we're going to define the fee. And remember, we imported something also here, which is the base fee. So this is where we are going to initialize the base fee for our liquidity, our instruction that we are sending. And we are also again going to define the network. So we're going to call the network paraphrase, which is what we are going to use to define the network that we are sending. So if you look at the options, the Stellar Future Net, the Peak, the Sandbox, the Standard, the Testnet, we're going to be working with the Testnet. Okay, so we are done setting up our transaction builder. Now let us begin to add operations. What exactly do we want to achieve? So the first thing we want to achieve before we even start creating the liquidity pool is we want to establish a trust line. Now let me quickly say what a trust line is. Going back again to what my when she was, for you to be able to act with an asset line with the asset, so it's just like giving permission to have this asset. So that the trust line, creating trust line simply means seeking permission. Okay, that way you don't own your wallet, does not, people don't spam you with assets that you don't need. So you establishing trust line simply means, okay, I give you permission to send me this particular asset. I give you permission to trade this particular asset. So that is basically what trust line means, right? If you again get the guide that we're going to share the link shortly, you're also going to understand in detail how the trust line actually works. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to add an operation. This operation will be to establish a trust line. And for us to establish a trust line, we're going to call the operations and we're going to call the change trust. And in this change trust, we are going to define in this chain trust, where this is where we're going to define the trust. Okay, what are we creating trust for? We are creating trust for which asset are we creating trust for? We are creating trust for the LP assets that we defined earlier, right? So we are giving permission for you to be able to trade with this liquidity asset that we created. We are giving permission so anybody can trade with this asset, right? So now we've done that. The next thing we want to do is let us define how much do we actually want to deposit into our liquidity pool. Okay, so this is also where you define how much. Remember when Maria was also explaining liquidity pool, she said something like that you can decide to deposit 500 USD equivalent into your liquidity pool. So you can also decide to deposit 500 USD value of the Lumen token into your liquidity pool. So this is where we define the amount we want to deposit into our liquidity pool so that people can trade with it. Okay, so to do that, we're going to add another operation, and it's going to be the liquidity pool deposit. So remember when I told you about the liquidity pool ID? This is why it's important, because this is how you passing the program the identifier, the ID for the liquidity pool that you're creating, right? So you can see here, we're not even calling the name of the liquidity pool, we're just passing in the ID. So the amount is basically means the amount of the tokens we were passing in. So we are passing in, remember the token we created here? Okay, the token we created here is the asset.native is the XLM token. The equivalent asset that we just created. Okay. So when we say we are passing in here, when we say we are passing in 100 amount A, amount B, basically what we're saying is that we're saying we want to deposit 100 XLM token and 100 equivalents. We can also say we want to deposit 1,000, because if you notice when we funded our accounts with the friend, but when we funded our account with test tokens, they gave us 10,000 XLM tokens. So we can also say here we want to fund our liquidity pool. We want to fund our liquidity pool with 5,000 SLM token and 5,000 equivalence token. All right. So that is basically what we are going to do here. So that's the amount A. So let me now call this, let's say 5,000, and let's say 5,000. So the minimum price is 1. Okay. The max price is also 1. We're setting it as 1. So we have like 1-to-1 comparison. We have like amount token A and token B will be equivalent, will be how do I put it, would be 50-50 in terms of ratio. Okay, so this program we just wrote here is the liquidity pool and with data pool. Now, upon successful creation of the liquidity pool, now it is time for people to transact with the assets in our liquidity pool, right? So we are also going to simulate that, right? And for us to simulate that, we are going to create another keeper account, which is we're going to call this time around the trader account. But before we do that, this instruction we set up here, nothing is working. We're not actually yet sending the blockchain. Remember I told you, before you send any transaction, any program, any instruction to the blockchain, you first of all have to sign it, and after signing it, you can now send it over. So right here, let us go ahead and sign this transaction. This transaction instruction is what? Is LP deposit transaction, right? We're going to .sign transaction. And who is this transaction? Guys, who do you think in this transaction? DeFi keeper that we created. Remember, I told you this is basically for signing transaction. This guy right here is signing this transaction. Okay, so we're passing the guy signing the transaction, which is the DeFi keeper. Now our transaction has been signed. It's time to send it over to the blockchain. And to do that, we again use a try catch statement. So the So we're sending our transaction to the blockchain and storing the result into the constant we named the result. So basically what we're doing here is to console log our output so we can be able to see what is happening. So even if when we are getting an error, we can easily debug where the error is coming from. Okay, so now we've succeeded in creating our liquidity pool. We've succeeded in depositing to our liquidity pool. We've succeeded in signing our liquidity pool, the transaction, and we've succeeded also in sending the transaction to the Stellar testnet. Now, let us do something. Let us run this transaction and see what happens. Okay, let us basically run this and see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to use npx node index.js to run the JavaScript file. So for most of you that are using Node, you can also use Node to run your script and see the result is going to. So it's going to take a little bit time to initialize and we are good to go. So while our transaction is being initialized, let me know if there is any question so far before we continue. We are almost we're almost there. Okay. Okay. Our code, our node has initialized, so let us wait for it to run. Okay, so everything seems to be in order. Yeah. So let me run it again. Do we have any question while we're creating the liquidity pool?
I currently don't see any questions in the chat, but if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat, guys. Comment basically, so they appear on the chat, and we cannot share the link to register for the guide on YouTube, but I've shared it here as a QR code.
Okay. So guys, so I wanted us to basically test what we are on the right before we continue. But this is that is why I spent time here to explain it. Okay. So um so while the node is initializing, let me about the next steps of going to be did. So the next we've created the liquidity pool, transact. So we want to transact with the liquidity pool we've created. And the first thing I told you that we're going to be doing, we're going to generate a new account. This new account is basically going to be we're going to simulate a transaction where people can actually trade our liquidity pool. So anybody can connect their wallet and transact with our liquidity pool. So for us to do that, we are going to repeat the steps of everything we did earlier when we were creating the random. Okay, but this time around we're going to call it the trader. We're going to call it the trader key pair. Okay, so I'm just going to paste it in here. So this is an instruction. We're going to generate a trader account. We're going to build, sign, and submit the request to transact. Okay, so here this is liquidity. This is the trader key pair. This is we're funding this account that we just created, and we are getting the account of this trader that we just simulated, right? So the next thing we are going to do is okay. So if you're looking at the console, our earlier transaction that we sent has gone. right? So if you're looking here, you will see the success message. You will see accounts has been funded. This is when we funded the account. So you can see the assets we created, right? You can see the issuer. So you can see the liquidity pool that we created. You can see the fee that we set. You can see the liquidity pool. So you can see also the transaction URL. So if you copy this URL and paste it on your browser, you will see actually this transaction on the Stellar blockchain, like is live on the chain. And we're going to transaction at the end of everything we've done. So you see that everything works how we intended for it to work. Okay. So as I was explaining, so let us build our transaction to actually make the. So like to create a new constant, and we're going to implement instruction, and we are still using the transaction builder that we used before. Okay, so this time around, who is sending this transaction? No longer the DeFi account, but the trader accounts. I believe by now you are beginning to understand how these things actually work. Again, we're setting the fee to be the base fee. So we're setting the fee to be base fee. And the network, again, we're sending the instructions through the network.testnet. Okay, so guys, you can see now we're going to understand. So we want a safety pool. I want you to give me permission to be able to trade these assets, but all these things are done programmatically, so you don't have to actually ask anybody for. So it's just like your smart contracts where all the code automatically runs when a certain criteria is met. So that is basically how it works. That's basically what the change trust also does. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set exactly what we want to do, right? So now establish the payment, the instruction. We've said, okay, give us permission to transact and add the operation to, let's do add operation. We want to add operation, actually make this purchase. So we're going to call again the operations method, and we're going to use the Stellar Part Payment Street Receive. Okay. So Part Payment Street Receive. That's what we're using. And we're going to say, okay, what exactly are you doing? This is where we are going to first of all, the set is going to XLM token, which is assets.native. Remember when Maria was explaining, you pay gas fee in the blockchain. When you say asset.native chain in this particular token, right? So send max. So we are setting the maximum amount that we want to actually transact. Let us say 1,000. That's the maximum amount that we want to transact. So destination, where is this transaction going to happen? It's going to happen in the wallet. It's going to happen in the wallet of the trader. Okay, so that's why we are putting in their public key. And also destination and which assets are we sending. We want to send. I hope it is making sense now. How much do we want to send? We want to send Where am I? We're telling it sources from this account. If you trade, for example, if this is actually a real transaction, so it's basically asking you, okay, what asset is what I want to send. Stellar program is asking you, okay, you want me to give you from our 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐄 assets. What are you giving us in exchange? We're giving them the assets, need the SLM token, which is the asset token. Giving them one in exchange for 200, or should we just make this, okay, let's leave it at 200 𝐒𝐿ANS token. So the next thing we are going to do, we are going to set timeout. So in case the transaction fails, so we're going to set it to 30 seconds. This should be set timeout. And we're going to build this transaction. So now we've done this. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to send this transaction. Okay, parts payments transaction. Oh, I made a mistake. This should be parts payments transaction. Okay, we're going to sign it. And who is going this time around? The trader, correct? Okay, so again, we're going to replicate what exactly we did. So we're going to send this transaction to paste what we did before, and I just changed to so exactly we did before. So that's basically to transact. So the last thing I also want us to do, since we're all on the same frequency right now, let us also simulate a withdrawal. Okay, so let us simulate also a withdrawal. So one liquidity pool, we are basically do replicate copy what we are calling the LP withdrawal transaction, and we're saying we set up everything I did before. We want to withdraw right now. We've been able to simulate a trade on the liquidity, and we've been also simulate a withdrawal on this liquidity, right? And close this liquidity pool. You want to withdraw all you can just add the amount here and send. So we're going to now run everything again from the beginning, what we have. Okay, so so let's give it time to compile and run. Okay, so once it's done running, once it's done, it's okay, the node has compiled, it will run shortly. So once it's done running, I'm going to copy the URL and I'm going to switch from my code editor back to my browser, and we can just look at it on the Stellar Explorer, so you can see that exactly what you're doing here. You're actually interacting with the Stellar testnet, and you will see everything about how it's happening. And also when you're building, you can see it's running. So when you're building, try as much as possible also to be consoling everything you're doing, and be pasting it into your browser, so you can be seeing exactly how you're interacting with the blockchain. So I'm going to copy the withdraw. Okay, I'm going to copy the withdraw. It's going to open on the browser. Let me also open the transfer. Okay, let me also open Let me also open this. Okay, so I'm going to so we can see that everything runs successfully. So from the account creation to the liquidity pool deposit to the transaction to the part payment and to the withdrawal. So this is exactly why we add console logs to everything we're doing, so we can know exactly what is happening at each particular time. Okay, so I'm going to now switch over to my browser so you can basically inspect with me exactly what is happening. So I'm going to stop sharing right now, and I'm going to quickly share the browser instead. So guys, it's been an exciting workshop. I don't know, but I'm super excited and I look forward to you guys building amazing projects. Okay, let me know if you can see my screen.
Not yet. I think
Okay, let me just is it showing now?
no, you have to share it somehow because I don't see it here in the, yeah, I see it now. All right. Oh no, it disappeared.
Okay, let me try again.
Yes. Now.
Is it showing
Now.
now? Is it showing?
Yes, it is. Now it's showing. Yes.
Okay, guys. So you can see the successful transaction. Okay, so you can see this is when we traded the 200 𝐒𝐔 token. So you can see the 200 𝐒𝐔 token that we swapped for 1000 XLM. We swapped for 200. So you can see the transaction signature, and this is live on chain. So you can see it's on test nets. If you're building on the public net, which is the main net, you can switch to public. So this is a transaction. This is the LP. This is the when we established the trust line. This is when we swapped with 1000 SLM tokens for 200 𝐒𝐶. Okay, so this is basically how it works. And if you also do the same for all, both the creation of the liquidity pool, the deposit, the payment and everything, you can inspect it on chain and you can show your friends the cool stuff you've built. Okay, so thank you for following that build with me.
All right, perfect. Thanks,
Okay.
Donatos. Thank you so much. Now, guys, some important information. If you want the guide with the code, please scan the QR code here. Unfortunately, we cannot put the link on YouTube. It is on our LinkedIn channel, although in the LinkedIn channel under the live, you can see a comment where the link to the guide is included. So go there to get the guide. All right, now I want to share with you the super amazing opportunity to participate in our developer challenge to build your own DeFi application on Stellar. This challenge just launched like 19 minutes ago on our platform Tech Fiesta. So go to techfiesta.dev and you will find the challenge there. And this challenge has a price of 1,000 USD. And what you need to do in the challenge is basically build this application that we showed you or a new one, whatever you come up with, and upgrade it in a way. So you can take the blueprint that we will share with you in this guide and just upgrade it either with a new front end or with some additional function. And you can then compete for the prize of 1,000 USD, where we will reward actually 10 people, and each of them will win $100, right? So we'll have 10 winners of this challenge. So there's a very high probability of success, right? So you can win this prize if you participate in the challenge. The submission deadline is the 2nd of September. So you have around, I think, 10 days to participate in the challenge. And here, like a step-by-step, what you can do is, of course, to go to Tech Fiesta, see the challenge, what exactly you have to build and what you have to submit. And when you create your DeFi application, you submit it on the Tech Fiesta platform. If you have any questions about that, though, write us on social media and we'll answer your questions. As I mentioned, the submission deadline is the 2nd of September, and the top 10 submissions will get $100 each. What we mean by top 10 submissions is that we're going to pick the applications that put some effort in it, right? So not only just copied the code that Donato shared, but also improved the code somehow by some function or by a nice front end. So again, to participate in the challenge, go to techfiesta.dev, and you can see the challenge on our homepage there. Okay. So, of course, as in every of our events, we also want to give you the opportunity to mint your participation certificate. This participation certificate is a special token for you with a very cool visual that you have participated in this session. So if you want to get a participation certificate, scan this QR code and you will get one. If you scan the QR code, I think, Prosper, if you can share the link somehow, maybe again on LinkedIn, so people can scan the QR code, can just click on the link to get their certificate. That would be really cool. We're getting the questions, can't find the QR. I guess you mean the QR for the guide. It is in the upper left corner here on the screen. Upper left corner, it says get the guide. That's the QR code. Or go to our LinkedIn, 𝐒𝐿𝐿 on LinkedIn. There you can find the link to the guide, right, as a comment on this live. Is it Tech Fiesta? Another comment. Yes, exactly. techfiesta.dev is our website where you can find the developer challenge. But we'll also send everyone an email again, letting you know about that. And sorry, but another QR code here. We're launching another amazing workshop, an upcoming workshop to teach you more blockchain technology. This time, the topic will be building a supply chain tracker application, decentralized application on the Concordium blockchain. So if you want to participate in this workshop, again, scan the QR code, or if you have registered for this one, we're going to send you an invite anyway for the next workshop. All right. And again, I'm leaving you here our contact details for any questions that you might have regarding building on Stellar, regarding the ongoing developer challenge that we have. Please contact us. Here is Donatos' email if you have any questions, any technical questions. Also, we're leaving here our LinkedIn, Twitter or X, Instagram, and Telegram. So you have a lot of opportunities to contact us. And thank you, everyone, for participating in this workshop. It was really nice to have you. I hope you really learned a lot. And I can imagine that if you have never built like a blockchain application, it's super cool to build your first one. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to be building during the developer challenge. And thanks again for your time. And I hope to see you soon in one of our other events. Of course, I would like to also thank Prosper and Donatos for participating here. And I wish everyone a great evening. Thank you.